I'd like to call the school board meeting to order, please. We don't have any public comment tonight, did we? Okay. Roll call of agenda, or attendance, sorry. Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Kevin,
Second.
second by Mike. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the consent agenda.
I move. Second.
Moved by Judy, second by Julie. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I want to comment and thank the community for contributions of about $10,000 that have been given to us. We certainly will use those funds according to the wishes of the donor, but also to promote the mission of the school district, and we're very grateful for every dollar.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the items on the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We have one very important presentation recognition tonight.
So I have the privilege of congratulating Kathy Weiland on her retirement next week. After 31 years in public education, our Director of Community Education, Dr. Kathy Weiland, intends to retire next week if we allow it.
Right. He intends.
I'm just going to leave it that way. So we are so fortunate for all that Dr. Weiland has done to raise the quality and participation of our community education programming. She's responsible for many of our positive community partnerships as she builds relationships behind the scenes with her commitment, integrity, and humor. So we are going to all miss Kathy, her incredible leadership, but she has assured us she will provide a smooth transition, and as a demonstration of that, we have our new Director of Community Education that you approved this evening, I believe, Kate Anderson. So welcome to you as well. And Kathy, if you will come and join me up here, I have a little something for you. I'd also like to thank Kathy because although she is new, I am also new, and Kathy is responsible for helping me with my transition too. She's done a lot to introduce me to members of the community. She drove me around quite a bit and on tours, and just in general helping me kind of navigate my transition as well. So I very much appreciate all Kathy has done for me. And so we have this token of our appreciation with Dr. Kathy Weiland can walk out ringing her bell on her. So here is this for you. So congratulations.
Did you get that, Alex?
And now we're going to do
You have to shake her hand.
You have to come down.
Oh, yes, you're welcome.
All right, now you can go over here.
in the middle.
Comes a crowd.
You need to act like you're ringing it.
Send one to Judd.
Thank you, everyone.
It's been an honor to be here. And that's true. Thank you. Where is Judd?
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have a report from our student representative, Claire.
This is a long one, so a forewarning. In February at Wildwood, there was a book fair from the 4th to the 14th, and then a health fair, and then the first graders visited the dentist. And then in March, the 2nd through the 6th is Read Across America Week, and Wildwood will be celebrating with Spirit Days that correspond to a book each day. And the 4th and the 5th of March, the first graders are taking a field trip to Minneapolis Institute of Art. And the 10th is the first graders program, and the 12th is the second graders program. And then in OH, in February, on the 13th was Emoji/Meme Day. The 27th and the 28th was the third graders program. And the second, and then in March on the 2nd is Wacky Sock Day. And throughout that week, OH will dress up to celebrate Dr. Seuss books. And then the 5th is fourth graders go to see the middle school play. The 6th, the Zoomobile visits the third graders. The 11th and the 12th is the fourth graders' music programs. The 13th is a famous person day. They dress up as their favorite famous person. And then at the middle school, in February, there has been multiple ski club events and conferences. And then in March, there on the 3rd was band solo and ensemble performances. On the 5th, 6th, and 7th was the middle school play, Juno B. Jones. On the 9th, the 7th and 8th graders performed, had choir performances. The 12th, the band is going to go to a band festival in Monticello. And then the high school, February was a very busy month for us. We had meetings with our counselors to decide what classes we're going to sign up for next year, and then we signed up for those classes. And then we had Silver Bell Week, which had Spirit Days, a pep fest, and a dance at the Mall of America. The Nordic team was conference champions, and sophomore Michaela Fisher qualified for state. The gymnastics team competed in the state meet. The wrestling team did well in their section and has 5 members advancing to state. Girls hockey finished their seasons, and 3 girls were recognized as all-state players. And tomorrow we have a presentation called Know Your Truth that will bring awareness of addiction and substance abuse to Mahtomedi High School. And then in March, the 9th, there's a 7th through 12th grader choir concert. And then spring break, of course. And then the 24th, all of the juniors will take the ACT. And then we're hoping that boys hockey will make it to state in March also. So.
Any questions for Claire?
Yeah, the Silver Bell at the mall, is it always at the Mall of America, or is that a different venue each year?
It's, in the past years, it's been a different venue, but we're going to keep it at the Mall of America. And next year, we're hoping to make it informal so more people can come, because it's really fun, because we get to go on the rides after it closes and stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So Claire, how was registration? We switched to online view book instead of handing out the paper things
Yeah.
everywhere. How was that for you?
I thought it went very smoothly. Yeah. And it was nice because counselors came in and explained everything to us, which I think provided a lot more clarity of what classes we should be taking, and yeah.
And so what are you registered for next year?
I registered for politics, since it's an election year, and debate, and then an English and math and a science class. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so now we have some discussion items, starting with the board calendar, which is in your packet. Are there items on that list that anyone would like to call out? I have a couple I can start, or Kevin, do you have one? No. Okay. On Friday, March 6th, at the AMSD Board of Directors meeting, I will be presenting on behalf of Pellsby and some of the things that are happening with that group, because I wear that hat as well. So if you want to come see me talk with the Executive Director of Pellsby and Steve Unowski, the Superintendent Representative, we will be there. Monday, March 23rd is MSBA Day Capital. I want to thank Barb because she's the one who organizes that on behalf of our district and makes all our appointments with our legislators. So thank you for
Well, thank
coordinating
you for
that.
thanking me, but it's really Laura who does it.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, there you go.
We need that.
Yeah, well, I just, credit where credit is due.
Yes.
All right.
And then on Saturday, April 4th, is Legacy Night, but it's also the Wildwood Artist Series a cappella concert.
And are you hosting a MSBA event at the District Ed Center?
We hosted this morning,
Oh, it was this morning?
yes.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yep.
Kevin has. one.
Kevin?
So an addendum to the May Legacy Night Spring Gala. To be noted, if you are planning to attend, you should purchase your tickets before March 10th, because you will save $25 getting the early bird pricing now versus March 10th and beyond, then you're going to pay $125. So prudent money says, buy now, not later. So.
Thank you. I had your event on my calendar for tomorrow.
Oh.
I have no idea.
And have it on my calendar.
Terrible, I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
I'm sorry. You were here all by yourself.
Not quite.
Not quite.
And I was really looking forward to it, so I.
It's all right. There's another one in April that we'll do out at Centennial, because it's in partnership with Director District 5, with Susie Guthmiller, who is in Centennial. So there's the second opportunity. It'll be evening, because we're trying to figure out the timing. Even the Metro-wide MSBA Coffee and Conversations, Susie and I are at least getting a lot of feedback that 9 o'clock time is hard. And this morning was another 9 o'clock time, and it was very hard for people. And so it was good feedback. And so now we'll try an evening one later in April and see if the attendance changes.
And my apologies, because I would have gone too. I just didn't get on the calendar. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, it's something that not our board asked for, but the district asked for, so, yeah. All is good. All right. Anything else on the calendar? All right. Let's move on to the first reading of policies.
And that's
Those are
with
yours.
me,
Yeah.
yes. So with the first reading of policies, you have 7 of them there. All of these policies were reviewed by the administration and by the policy committee. Some of these are MSBA recommended changes, and others are administrative changes that we recommended for you. So I'm bringing these forward for a first reading, and I know you all have them in your packets. So I don't know if there were some questions or comments that you wanted to make on this first
I
reading.
have one on this, and it's just clarification. 419, where it talks about it identifies the schools, elementary school, middle school, or secondary. Does Passages, is that secondary? I mean, would that qualify as a secondary? Okay.
I called Barb today with all my questions, so I really don't have anything else to ask. So I know, because I always do. I spared all of you, but I did not spare Barb, so.
Okay. That's fine. The one thing we did, and so to that end, one thing that I guess I would highlight that Julie and I talked about on policy 419 had to do with the enforcement of the policy. So it was, so 419 is the possession and use of tobacco, tobacco-related devices, and electronic delivery devices. As part of that, she had some questions about Part 5, Roman numeral 5, enforcement. One of the things we talk about, and it has to do with discipline procedures around vaping in particular. It has been a lot of our conversation. And one of the things we know is that when students are addicted to something, punishing them out of addiction is not the way to go to help. And so we have had conversations with the high school administration about the idea of how do we both hold students accountable while supporting them in dealing with their addiction. And so I would want you to know that that is the conversation we're having, and we're working on our systems there. It's not a policy level decision, but it is procedurally, we are working on how can we set up a good system where it's both supportive and holding kids accountable. So that was a question that Julie had, so I just thought I'd mention that as well.
Well, this mimics kind of how we're seeing things in the adult world, when we have addicted people, trying to get them out of their addiction versus penalizing them for something they can't easily break.
So there's currently a policy in place. So when you say that, you're saying you're looking to.
Right, there is a practice in place that we would like to improve upon, so that it is more supportive while holding kids accountable instead of so punitive So it's kind of-
is the current policy, that's what, or I keep saying policy, but I understand.
The practice right now is that students, when they're first, their first, I don't know, their first offense, I'll say, they are sent to diversion. But then after that, there are tickets written. And we think we could probably do a little bit better in helping find kids resources to help with their addiction. And so we'll be pursuing that in just ways that we can help them
Great.
alongside of holding them accountable. Because the thing I'd want you to also know, there are those students who aren't, the majority of our students are not vaping. The vast majority of our students are not vaping, and so they have the right to also have a vape-free environment as well. So I would want you to know that as well. Mhm.
So I'd like to ask a question about the seventh policy, Policy 902.
Okay.
So this is a brand-new policy for us in terms of maintaining our outdoor facilities, and it's a very important policy so we don't damage these fields. And I'm a little concerned about our timeline in terms of, it's going to warm up quickly, the snow is going to melt, and people will want to use these fields, and wondering if the board would be okay moving that one forward for action at the next full board meeting instead of waiting the 3 board meetings, so we can get that in place to support our staff to make sure it can be implemented, because right now the staff doesn't have a district policy to fall back on. They've got their piece, but I think us endorsing this sooner than later is supportive of our staff and will help give clarity to the community about what is expected this spring. But because we have a policy on policies that says we have the opportunity for public comment twice before we vote, it would make the vote on this particular policy drag out, I think, too long. And so I'm wondering if the board would be okay with moving this forward a little more quickly in order to support our staff.
I'm okay with it.
Especially after what we heard at our facilities meeting
Yeah.
tonight, I think we should support it. And that is, Judy, that people are already starting to try to shovel some of the fields.
Causing damage.
And causing
the
damage
property, which we
to the brand
invest
new.
a lot of money in.
The brand-new coated track and tennis courts already.
Talked about that at the policy meeting.
Oh, did you?
So, right now, this is a first reading. If a board member were to feel strongly enough that it should be approved sooner than that, we didn't have any public comment on it tonight. It is our policy. We can waive our policy about the readings. If someone wanted to move it forward even tonight, that's an option, I think, in order to get it in place for our staff. But when we get down to action items, if someone wants to do that, I think that would be appropriate. But the board would have to be on board with that, and I'd want to do that one separately just to make sure, because it would be a little bit different. So, anything else on those policies?
Looks like Kevin has another.
Kevin?
601, school district curriculum and instructional goals. There's a lot of change to this one. You get down to page 24, electronic page 24, I guess it would be. And
601 down. No, mine's numbered differently. I'm looking at a different view than you are. Can you tell me?
601-4.
Thank you.
24.
I don't have the 24. Got it.
But there's a lot of red in that. Is this coming from the state? Rules changed on the state side?
So there's a combination. So part of this is updated because there were some legislative changes. And part of it is because last time we reviewed this policy, we didn't catch all of the changes. We had some things missing that had been changed previously.
Okay.
So it's a combination of both of those, and that is why there is more than you would expect. There are a couple of our 600 policies that were in that situation.
So is this recommended by MSBA?
Combination, yeah, so it's an MSBA recommended policy. So that was, so to back up on a few of these, in general, my recommendation is that where we can align with the MSBA policy, it's wise to do so. And so there were a couple policies where my thought is that perhaps we looked at the MSBA recommended policy at the time and we thought, well, I'm not sure if these changes need to be made or not. And I'm just recommending unless there's a glaring reason not to, that we try and stick with our MSBA policies, just because for review process, the process of reviewing the policies, I think it will help us with that, because we know they'll be in line, they've been vetted. And so, yes, it is an MSBA, all of this is MSBA recommended, and there is a combination of some recent recommendations and some that we had not had before.
So are we, to this 601 one where we have all the new changes, is this something we currently have implemented, so it's just moving right along here?
Yes,
Okay.
and, yep, and so a lot, you'll notice that the big section where there's a lot of red has to do with the dyslexia.
Yeah.
And those were changes that were legislated, but we also had been making them according to World's Best Workforce, and also for our Read Well plan as well. So those things were already in practice, and they just weren't in our policy. Mhm.
Along the same line, 601 and 603, I was happy to see all those dyslexia changes, so thank you.
Any other comments or questions that we need Barb to look at before the next meeting, when these come up again? All right. So we have nothing to investigate, they'll just keep moving forward.
Okay.
Next, we have the summary of the January 23rd, 2020 closed meeting, the superintendent's mid-year evaluation. So on January 23rd, we closed the board meeting to do the mid-year evaluation of our superintendent. This process includes a board survey and a self-evaluation by the superintendent explaining how far we are on goals, and the survey showed for the most unanimous agreement we've ever seen in a board survey like this in terms of satisfaction with the work that Barb is doing. We're very, very pleased with the work that's happening, and are very excited about the continued work that'll happen the rest of this year into next year. So,
Thank you.
thank you for your work. And now, action items. Oh, would any other board member like to add anything about Barb?
action items?
For Barb's evaluation. I did the summary of the meeting, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I just, you rock.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. All right.
Okay.
I would say, I would echo, I mean, obviously, my words are in this thing, but I would also want to verbally reiterate that I'm personally very pleased. It's going really well, and sometimes, you know, you hear little bits and pieces as you navigate around, and every bit or piece that I've heard has been very positive, so.
Okay, all right.
Now we all feel compelled.
So, yep.
We're making her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh, she's doing great.
All right.
Perfect, Kathy.
All right. Okay, now we'll go on to action items. We're going to start with the approval of the Achievement Integration 3-year plan. Courtney McCormick. I think
We have a bell, Courtney.
Hello, no, I have no bell. Hard to ask to follow. Okay, I'll let you know. Okay, included in your packet are two documents that might be helpful for the conversation. Probably the most helpful would be the summary of the goals and strategies, looks like this. And then in addition, you have the entire document, the plan that will be submitted to MDE upon your approval. So, Achievement and Integration, I've stood before you before to give a report at the end of every year about how we're doing with our plan, along with the World's Best Workforce. What we're doing now is we're in a new 3-year plan cycle. So it's time to write a new plan and submit a new plan, take a fresh look at what we're doing within the Minnesota Department of Education's parameters. So the goal and the purpose of MDE's Achievement and Integration program is on the slide behind you. And every 3 years, we get to write a new plan. Our 2020-2023 goals are in collaboration with School District 622. So we are eligible to access this funding because we are in collaboration with a racially isolated district. That's when you hear about our collaborative relationship with North St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale ISD 622. So the process. In developing this plan, we start with the Department of Education's parameters. From those parameters, we build two separate pieces that talk to each other. So we have our own Montgomery Public Schools plan that has our own goals for our district, and then those goals are in sync with our collaborative goals. So we do this, we plan together to make sure that our funding is supporting that collaborative relationship and the activities through that collaborative, but our individual goals help us look at our continuous growth and improvement. So we started with looking at those parameters, starting to build those two plans, came out of we brought together a leadership team, looking at a data analysis, looking at multiple means of data to inform what do we need to get after with these goals. Then we had some collaborative conversations with the 622 leadership, then a work session at the Department of Education with their Achievement and Integration staff. From there, we developed our initial draft of our goals. Then we went to our EEA advisory input, and that's our Education Equity Alliance. That's the collaborative advisory board. So there are stakeholders from both districts that come together for that board meeting. And it's really the goal of that group is to help us support the strength of our plans and the strength of our collaboration. From there, I'm here with you tonight to get your approval. Then we send it off to MDE for their approval. And then we look at this continuously. We're continuously reviewing our strategies and the collaboration between the two districts to improve. I think it's important to note that the plan was modified after each step. So that data analysis involved multiple different perspectives coming in and conversations. The deep dive into data revealed other questions that we got to explore to try to figure out what are the best goals that we can develop for our school district. The 4 goals on the screen that you see there are our goals for our district in our plan. And as defined by statute, we need to have 3 types of goals. Goals that reduce achievement disparities, goals that increase racial and economic integration, and goals that increase equitable access to effective and more diverse teachers. So you can see our first 2 goals would be the achievement disparity goals. Goal number 3 is looking at increasing integration with a local data point to improve or to inform our improvement of how our students are relating to each other. And then that final goal looking at increasing equitable access to more diverse teachers. So these goals don't stand on their own in isolation. They support other work in our district. They align with our World's Best Workforce goals. This is just one piece of our overall continuous improvement as a district. There are 7 strategies that support the realization of these goals. Those strategies are in your packet. And each one of those strategies has key indicators of progress for each year of the plan so that we are looking at data to inform how are we doing on realizing the strategies to therefore realizing the goals. Some updates to the strategies from the last 3-year plan include increased outreach and restorative practices implementation support, targeted math and reading support, racial equity professional development, and a focus on strategies for recruitment and retention of racially diverse teachers. We've been examining our hiring practices, this collaborative conversation around student teaching and field experience partners, and really digging deep into that right now. So one piece of this that I mentioned, so we just went over our plan, our district plan, and then we have our collaboration with 622 North St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale. There are 2 pieces that we really came together as an advisory board and identified as areas that we can support cross-district learning, so both for students and adults. And for students, we're looking at some different student voice, racial equity, and wellness workshops. Building level collaborative opportunities, so looking at connecting the principals in the buildings. It came out of the EEA meeting, and Kevin can speak to this as well, that the opportunity for authentic collaboration is going to come from engagement at that building level to make sure that we've got strategies that will work to connect our kids. And then shared academic learning opportunities. We have a lofty goal out there to say how can we bring our students together long-term to have shared academic learning opportunities in addition to student voice, racial equity, and wellness work. And then for the adults, shared professional development. We've had lots of opportunities that we've identified with the collaborative that we could be sharing resources for adults, and then bringing adults together for learning as well around racial equity and reading. For example, the Teachers College Reading Workshop will be hosted here this year, and we will be inviting teachers from School District 622 to join us in that work. One example of what's going on right now for Student Voice, there's a Student Voice event for some of our high school students that will be coming up on Thursday, March 26th. Those plans are really coming together now, and that will be a collaborative experience between students from North St. Paul High School, Tartan High School, and Montmedy High School. Do you have any questions? It's a lot of information. I've been known to talk fast and give a lot of information, so any questions I can answer.
Why don't you start? Yeah.
The board liaison up for this group. And first, I want to just applaud Courtney for just going headfirst into this with lots of energy and passion. And it shows. It really shows in what you're doing, not only with that group and working through this plan, but your small book group that you host monthly to help those of us that want to come in and learn about equity work grow. And so I really wanted to just call it out that you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Just a little history on this whole idea. Some years ago, you probably, those of you that have been here long enough, Judy, I know you have, but we had something called the East Metro Integration District, and that was a collaboration between 10 districts, 9 districts in St. Paul, and the idea was to help St. Paul integrate and voluntary integration by using the EMED schools. There was Harambee and Crosswinds, and the idea, again, was just to help essentially what we're doing here, but only on a bigger scale. But what turned out, what happened was things changed, demographics changed in our communities, and so schools, districts such as Roseville area schools and Maplewood found that they were kind of had similar numbers to St. Paul, so all of a sudden they were supposed to help change and integrate, but it didn't work so well anymore. So that was when that collaborative broke up about 8 years ago, I want to say. It was almost the same time when Brenda Casillas went as the commissioner for Mark Dayton. But then this new idea formed, and that was, again, I think there's more of an immediacy because, many of us drive through 622 on the way to work, and there is within 5 miles of O.H. Anderson a school that is just completely different demographically and, has more, definitely there's more challenges for some of the schools there. So this is a great idea. I mean, it's a great idea. I threw out to Michelle Yenner, who is the school board rep from 622, I said, we should do like this collaborative school board thing where we get the two school boards together and do some of this work. And so I don't know if I know I'm sometimes throw out these crazy ideas, so just bear with me a little bit. But again, I think there's an enthusiasm and excitement that I haven't seen because I've been the rep for this for probably 6. Mary Jo, I think, was the first person, Mary Jo Dieters, and then I came on, and so it seems like there's a new enthusiasm currently. So.
And thank you for that history. This is just my second year in this role, so Kevin has really helped fill in some gaps of where we've been and where we are, and I can say there's new leadership around our collaborative in both school districts right now. So it's a really great opportunity to have sort of a fresh look at what we're doing and to take it to the next step.
I do have a question.
Okay.
On Goal 1 and Goal 2, talks about the MCA reading, economic-based proficiency, and Goal 2, the math, the MCA math, race-based proficiency. Can you explain the different thoughts there?
So this funding is specific to racial and economic integration and achievement disparities. So it's intentional that we are addressing both. We have gaps, both economic-based and race-based gaps in both math and reading. So The writing of the goals was intentional to make sure that we are we're giving attention to both math and reading, and looking at the fact that we have both types of disparities that the plan addresses.
And if I'm not mistaken, when you talked, because I had the same question. You identified that our economic gaps are similar in reading and math, and our racial gaps are similar in reading.
Yes, they are very similar, so just picked, we could have exchanged either in either content area. Yes, that's true.
Great, thank you.
So as long as we're on math, I like math. How does the goal and the work that's addressed in the strategy build on the work that our teachers at Wildwood have been doing and presenting at national conferences? So they were doing the work with Marcy Wood and things on the math instruction. Does this build off of that?
So it's more parallel. This isn't in addition to, it's all together. So looking at looking at how are we supporting that work, and what additional support can we bring in to that work and make it all a part of what we do. Does that answer your question?
And then also in this goal, it has to go to heterogeneous classrooms without ability grouping through grade 3. And why do we pick grade 3 and not K-5?
Well, our current practice is heterogeneous grouping K-3. So I don't get to make decisions about what we're doing. My job is to write the goals that reflect what we're doing.
Okay.
And then supporting that work as well.
So this is saying that's where we are now, but then the rest of the goal in terms of looking at the analysis, then we'll be able to move past this and hopefully expand that going forward, is what the thinking is?
The narrative in the plan
Right.
addresses that the fact that this is where we're starting, and then we use this opportunity to examine practices.
I have more questions unless someone else has something. So in strategy number 2, where it talks about the racial equity professional development, how will that support our teachers who are up for licensure renewal who need the cultural competency training?
So this budget alone can't support all of our professional development. So the staff development funds would also support any of our racial equity work as well. Specifically to relicensure, and this is away from the plan, this is more of a staff development philosophy, right? Is that we've been intentional in making sure that each year we are addressing different requirements of relicensure.
Right.
So these funds could support that when we're doing that work. Right now, what we're going to be working with the Equity Literacy Institute with the leadership team. So that's the first step of this plan, and using those funds to support that work.
Okay. I think I've got one more, hold on. I like this plan, it was good to read, so thank you for all your work. Goal number 4, where we talk about increasing the racial diversity of the teaching staff. How many teachers is this? I mean, this is a really hard goal. I mean, this is really hard.
So I hesitate to answer that question because it would really it would be very personal because we have a starting point there.
Right,
So
okay.
that's why it's percentages. It was intentional to try to write something attainable, which is why it looks like a very small increase.
Right, but even this small increase, I'm concerned about.
Yes.
I mean, the teachers of color are not out there.
And the way that we make sure that we are working aggressively towarit a more diverse staff is to put it in writing and to make it a goal. And I think that it might not be possible with only 4% of the teaching force being teachers of color. This is obviously going to be a challenge, but what it's going to do is give us an opportunity to examine our practices and to see how that supports diversity of perspectives coming in and joining our community as well.
I would hope in thinking about that and thinking about student voice and some other pieces that we also think about how we can work with our own community, because we do have a community of color within our district and encourage them to go into teaching. And it's a longer-term piece in terms of thinking about how that could impact our school. So it won't impact us in this 3-year plan, but might be a nice piece to think about. Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the plan as presented?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Kevin, second by Julie. Any other discussion on the plan?
Thanks for all your work.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks,
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Next, we have the approval of the 2019-2020 revised budget. Jeff Priest.
Good evening. So, what we're going to ask the board to do here tonight is approve general fund budget revisions, and they're reflecting a report that you received back in December and I've made one change on the revenue side, and it'll include an adjustment for special education categorical revenue. So our budget process in this district is to make this mid-year revision. And essentially, it's based on, or it's going to reflect any, call it significant event from the preliminary budget. So it's things typically, it'll include things like enrollment adjustments, contract settlements. If you think about the fact the budget is put together probably in April, May kind of time frame, we're going to use staff that are here. Some of those staff change through the summer. So the revisions kind of reflect all those changes that are made to the budget throughout the course of the year. So another significant item can be legislative changes, and that's one of the things that we'll see here with our change in the current year. So the general fund budget revisions that we're going to ask you to approve. Again, if we look at that far right-hand column, 2019-2020 budget, those are the numbers that you were presented back in December, with the addition of $142,000 that I've got up on the top of that screen there. $142,183 special education categorical revenue, and that results from call it a conservative FY19 audit estimate. So as we get to the kind of real numbers where we end up with special education revenue, we can adjust that estimate and put that actually becomes part of the current year 2019-2020 budget. So those numbers there: revenue 41.9, expenditures the 41.5, and I would say the good news here is that with these revisions, we're looking at a surplus of $437,000. So I put the prior year on there as a comparison. So last year fund balance dropped by $127,000, but with these revisions in the current year, we're looking at $437,000 surplus. So where that leaves us, then I break down the assigned fund balance, the unassigned fund balance. So unassigned fund balance projected for the year is at 2.148, and that represents 5.2 of total expenditures. So I think that you had a report back in December. I believe that said that fund balance was going to 4.7. 5.2 then reflects that change, that additional revenue that wasn't in that December report. So 5.2, I do show on the bottom there, the unassigned fund balance target is 8%. So we're a little bit below that. We would need about 1.1 million more in fund balance to get to that 8%, but we are headed in the right direction. And then I believe that the report I gave you back at the work session a couple of weeks ago, we're also looking at a surplus for the current year of about $215,000. So So we have that tracking, that fund balance tracking, obviously in the right direction. So this is more of a breakdown of again, I show 2018-19 for comparison purposes, but a little more detail on the 2019-2020 budget. I highlight the special education aid. In the preliminary budget in this district, we had projected that revenue at $3.5 million. So that's a significant event. That's one of the reasons we're doing this budget adjustment. So on the bottom, I mentioned the 2019 legislature enhanced the special education funding formula. So there were some growth limits that were built in. Those changed a little bit for this current year. They're going away when we get to the next year. And then there was also a cross-subsidy component, which generates about another $102,000 in that. So these are things not known when the preliminary budget was put together. But nice increase of 20.1% from the prior year with special education aid. Then that number would also include that $142,000 that you call that an audit under accrual from the prior year. So you don't recognize that in the prior year. That rolls into current year as well. So then as we look at a kind of a breakdown of fund balance, beginning fund balance so that right side of the chart is the current year. So beginning fund balance was 3.1. Ending fund balance with that $437,000 increase takes us to 3.6. The non-spendable, so those are the restricted accounts assigned, non-spendable, drop a little bit to 1.4. So most of his point here is of that 437,000, that finds its way to the unassigned, which is where we want it to end up. So fund balance as a percent of expenses, 8.7%. When you take total fund balance, that 3.6, and then the unassigned fund balance, again, we'd like that to get to 8%, should land at about that 5.2. So we're recommending board adopt these adjustments, and I put up the preliminary with the preliminary budget. I believe we were looking at about a $96,000 surplus, so that has grown with these changes. And again, most of it relating to the special education revenues. So, questions?
Questions from board members?
We had a chance to discuss this at our finance meeting earlier in the evening, and so we had a lot of questions answered there, and we thank you for the thoroughness and easy understanding of your presentation.
So I think there were only two of us not at the finance meeting. So I do have a question. On the slide that has the special education aid highlighted in blue,
Yeah.
so 3 slides back, it has a miscellaneous revenue fund that's dropped by 10%.
Yep, yeah.
Can you talk some about that?
I can. Those were, as I look back at the actual from last year, it's our student activity account, our donation account, and it looked like those were just kind of abnormally high for 18-19. I think it's probably budgeted correctly for this current year, but in any case, those are kind of wash accounts. So, so if the revenue is 1.6, expenditures were, or it's going to an assigned fund balance. So anyway, we think it's probably going to track closer to what normally occurs in those accounts.
Okay.
I think I'm not answering your question.
No, I still understand. So
So
are
I'd
we
say-
increasing our expenses into the activities account? I mean, from the general fund?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, it looked like it was a As I look back, well, there was an increase in student activity. There seemed like there was a higher level of donations, okay? But then typically, those are spent, maybe not currently, but they'll go into an assigned fund balance.
Right.
So to say that, gee, we're going to do this 1.6 every year, I think would be inflating both revenue and expense. So,
Okay.
And that's a piece that's a good question. But that's a piece of revenue and expense that is pretty much a wash, ends up in the assigned fund balance. So,
Well, so,
Am I
no, it's helpful.
Okay.
I guess my concern is, a number of years ago, we looked at the expenses of the activities account, and for a while, we were continually increasing the amount we were putting in activities. Remember that? The general fund contribution to the activities account was growing and growing and growing. We asked that to slow. And so we made some adjustments in fees and some other things to slow that. So when you brought up that was activities, it made me concerned about what's happening with that activities fund. Is that continuing to be a larger drain on the general fund?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good or
Okay.
bad.
Okay.
I'm just asking what it is, because we know those activities for high schoolers are extremely important and make a difference in their well-being and their academics, but I'm just curious what's happening there.
Yeah, now I'm tracking with you, so.
Okay.
So with the student activity accounts, there's not a general fund contribution to those accounts. So they're funded through activity fees, donations, okay? So you wouldn't want to slow those down. If people want to make donations, that's awesome.
Right.
So there's it doesn't impact the unassigned general fund balance. Because
So we're
there's not a contribution. In fact, for student activities, there really can't be.
But historically, we were putting over $500,000 into the activities fund from the general fund a number of years ago. And we've stopped that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I would say that's a good thing that you're no longer doing that.
Okay.
So, and if you look at that, there's a healthy assigned fund balance. So donations and
Right.
fees, revenues have tracked higher than the expenditures.
Okay. That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah. Did I finally answer that question?
Yes, and I'll probably follow up later with you with more. But for now, that's great, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? So it is an action item tonight. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Mike, second by Stacy. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the revised budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jen.
Oh, we're back to policies. What a fun night.
All right, so these are the policies in here that need to be reviewed annually, and some of them don't have changes, and some of the policies listed here have minor MSBA changes. And so again, these have been reviewed. The policy committee looked at them as well. So you have them listed according to, let's see if they're listed this way in the actual packet. No, so on the cover sheet for this item, we have them listed as annual policies with no changes and policies with minor MSBA changes listed there. Are they? I don't think they're listed in that order. I'm just double checking.
No, they're not.
They're just listed in order in the actual agenda, but then the cover sheet kind of highlights which are which. And we did review all of these in the policy committee. So I am recommending that we approve these policies this evening because I do not believe there is much discussion with any of these.
And this was based on a recommendation from the policy committee in working with Barb and thinking about taking these through 3 readings that make sense. There's no substantial difference in the policies, but to keep them moving and to keep our agendas, clear of all the policies and spend our time focusing on those policies that have had those changes, which were the 7 from earlier.
And move approval of the policies.
Okay, there's a motion to move approval.
Second.
Moved by Judy, second by Mike. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to be asked ask that we move policy 902 for use of school facilities, Appendix B, onto this list for approval as well. So do we have to amend to do that?
Let's take this motion first, and can you make that motion next?
After?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
one motion at a time, because it'd be nice if that was different, because we're doing that one a little bit differently. So thank you for remembering that. If you could hold that for 1 second, though. So the ones that are on the list, items 9C, 1 through 26, any discussion of those policies? All those in favor to move those forward tonight to be done with them, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now I believe we have another motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve policy 902 and relax our policy on policies by approving this school use facilities Appendix B tonight after its first reading.
A motion on the floor to approve policy 902.
Second.
Who wants that one? Kevin? So moved by Julie, thank you. Second by Kevin. Any discussion about that item? All
I
those,
just think that the timing of it is really important to protect the integrity of the fields.
thank you. We've all discussed this too between the facilities committee and the policy committee. I think all of us have heard about it. We know the public will have comments, but it's something we have to do to protect our investment in our grounds. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So, onward now, we have the approval of the resolution supporting local decision-making authority for school boards. Julie?
Can I read off your iPad, please?
Yes. Well, now if you get through all the policies. Here's your resolution.
Do I have to read the whole thing? Do you think? No? Okay. Well, this is just a policy recommended by, actually, it's not a policy. It's just a.
It's a resolution.
It's a resolution that was requested by MSBA that we, I forgot I was doing this today. I'm so sorry. That it was to
You presented it so well last time, it's okay.
continue our local control.
So
At
it's,
the district level.
MSBA is asking for our support to help with our lobbying in terms of, Julie presented this to us
Done this before, I think, yeah.
in January, and we've done it before. The language is very clear that we would like no unfunded mandates, and that there are many things that should happen at the local level and not at the state level, and that's all this is stating.
That our board supports local decision-making authority and opposes legislation that restricts the ability for locally elected school boards to respond to the needs of their district students and communities. So, sorry about that.
Great, no, that's fabulous.
So,
So you're going to move that forward?
so yes, I would make a motion to approve that resolution.
Moved by Julie, second by Stacy. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we just have some committee reports now, starting with AMSD. Mike?
Well, Barb and I were both there a few Fridays ago now, right? Because it's always the day after our meeting, and they had their legislative preview. And so a lot of the senators and representatives were there and hobnobbing, and they had a panel discussion with the heads of the Senate and House Education Committees. And it was a good discussion, and I think a lot of good questions were asked, and just kind of gave us a little bit of a foresight, and I don't know how much is going to get done, so, Barb?
I'd say the major discussion that was had was about the constitutional amendment, and it was clear at that time that no one really knew what they thought about the constitutional amendment. So I think there have been decisions made since then in terms of how people are landing on that, but at the time, it was a lot of conversation about what does it mean, what will the implications be to districts, and so it's, that was a lot of the conversation at AMSD that day.
And there are a number of policy statements out from organizations where they stand on that now, as you
Right.
stated. So MSBA's put out a statement. I'm not sure if AMSD's put out their statement yet. Education Minnesota's put out a statement. And so if you're interested in where where organizations are falling, their statements are out on their web pages for that constitutional amendment. MAIF.
I missed the last board meeting as I was out of town with my family. I would just encourage everybody to remember tonight to donate for our donation for MAIF Gala, whatever you can give. They'd like to have 100% school board participation, whatever you can afford. Also, as Kevin mentioned, the tickets are on sale for the gala. And if there's anything else either Barb or Kevin would like to mention from the meeting that took place on Monday.
The mission moment was a lot about looking at the MAIF grants, and the grants committee came and reported on the grants, which are still a secret because people have not learned whether or not their grant was accepted, but that was the big conversation that evening, I would say.
I'm sad I missed it because that's a happy moment. When
It
you get to see all the
was!
all the fun things that they're giving money for. It's one of the most positive things that you usually get to hear.
We also had a good, the scholarship committee also reported that we had quite a few. There have been times when students hadn't applied for all of the scholarships that were provided, but this time that was not the case. And so we had great participation in the scholarships. So the scholarship committee will be working through that as well. So some other good news there. Yep.
MSBA. We had a very good conference in January. MSBA now is working on the revision of the bylaws and articles of incorporation to bring before the membership next January. So the process takes a while before you have the full membership back together. But one of the things we'll be discussing are the area groups. As you know, Kevin is a past area director. I'm a current area director. But the board will be addressing that question of what do those area groups mean, how should they be divided, and we're not sure what that's going to look like yet, if it'll stay exactly the same, which is one possibility, or if there'll be some revision there. So that's what we're working on. 916.
916 just had their gala less than a week ago, and thank you, Lucy and Stacy, for going. We had, so there's three of us, and that's a fun night. I don't know what but it just is. And I was just amazed they were auctioning off desserts. And they had Keys cake. Seemed to me they were the most of the 5 different purveyors of cakes. The Keys cakes went for the most money, as I recall. And I was in Keys this morning for breakfast, and I said, your cakes, they went for, combined, I think it was $1,000. I mean, for 2 cakes.
Quite a bit more than that, because one cake was over $800, wasn't it? So if you want dessert at the 916 gala, you need to bring a little bit of money.
Or sit next to someone who does. So
right.
I thought it was a brilliant idea and for a great cause.
And, there was a Rotary table there, and there's just something fun, because typically they don't get the same, it's maybe not everybody's home district, and so it's just a different thing, but it's nice to have everybody come together and participate in a really great cause. And it was music, composition, and it was all to do with music was the fun it needs. So that was fun. The other big news, on a more serious note, is the intended withdrawal of St. Francis from the collaborative. So there are 14-member districts currently. With them leaving, that would be, of course, 13. And there's an 18-month period from when they notify to that. And so there's a lot to work through. And so, as we know more, we'll report more. What's that? 2016. Yeah. They found that they thought that because of their geographic location, that it was easier to use a different something. is something north, and I want to say Rum River Collaborative, is that right? Yeah, I think oh, my gosh.
All right, Kevin.
Pull that one out. So I think that's the main driving force there. And so again, as I know more, I'll share. Kind of on a funny note, they send a certain number, I think it's 2 people a year to the NSBA conference this year in Chicago. And I'm so new, I just thought, well, it'll be years before, my number would be up. And so I get an email this morning, and all these 6 people declined, and you're up. And the problem is it's April 4th. Guess what I'm doing on April 4th? Not going to that. It's the gala night. So we've got coming up next week, in the next couple of weeks, we've got students coming to, am I going too long?
You're cut off. That's going to be her new role as a person.
Thanks, Kate. That's great.
Kathy set you up for that, I think.
She did. Just wait, Kathy. But they're going to have students come and report to the board in 3 different, and maybe you went through this, Judy, but they're going to have students come and kind of talk about their experience with 916 and kind of give us a more personalized feel for the student individuals in these programs and what they're getting out of it, what have you, so we get a deeper understanding. So that's 916.
Nicely timed report. Do we have other subcommittees or groups that have met that we need to report on?
I'll just share. So the Community Advisory Board met, and that was Kathy's final meeting, and we covered a number of events. Of course, there's always so many great events, and the brochure has been out for the spring events, and then the summer one will come out in just a couple of weeks. And again, we will miss Kathy, but we're looking forward to Kate taking the reins. And then also the parent-teacher group met a couple of times, and unfortunately, I was not at the very last one, so just would really like to encourage if people want to, the principals also hold a roundtable, so just want to remind you that they do meet different times, sometimes in the evening, sometimes in the day. But if you all want to join, just let me know, and I'll make sure you get that information, because it's a great way for us to keep a pulse on what's happening at Wildwood and OHA.
Thank you.
I do.
Okay, yeah, I can make sure.
So I will report on the curriculum committee. Lynn hosted the curriculum committee on January 27th. We had a nice update from Patrick on the technology advisory process that's happening in the district and all the work he's doing there, and the focus on the great opportunities coming up. And I'm sure he's going to report to us at some point on the final outcome. We talked about the curriculum process and the need for more staff and student voice in the curriculum process. A new process is being implemented at our high school in terms of looking at new course offerings, and so that's exciting to have those opportunities for our students. And then Lynn reported on the ongoing reviews. It was a really good meeting. There was really good discussion between the members and brainstorming some different ideas to support the district, so I really enjoyed that. You want to start?
Okay, and Lucy and I also attended the Inside Out training put on by the High School League and sponsored by the Vikings and the NHL and NFL and FL. And it was an all-day session talking about the importance of sports for students, and the Inside Out curriculum is what they were discussing. From the vantage point that activities could be the most important hours of the school day for students, and trying to define the purpose of those educational-based sports. What is the point? Trying to change the narrative with parents from a win at all costs to creating kids who will create a better humanity.
It's a really nice summary.
So.
And then there's more coming on that. There'll be an opportunity for athletic directors, including Aaron, to go in April to some training, and then school teams can attend some training both at US Bank Stadium in August. And I know Barb's been on board helping us make sure we've got representation at those meetings. So.
Erin, I know, is going to be at that first
Yeah,
one.
it was a really good session, and we're really appreciative that Barb was able to help have us attend that, so thank you.
Yeah, it was very inspiring.
Once again, I'm sure it was Laura, but thank you. Thank you for
Thank you,
that.
Laura. Okay. Any other board reports? Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, now, once again, Claire hit a number of these items I had on my list, but I'm going to, so just in general, of course, this is the time of year for our winter sports, and our high school, on it's doing very well across the board, with the gymnastics team qualifying for state, and then also, we had the individual all-around champion for state as well, second year in a row for Bella Fratellone.
In two different categories.
In single A and the double. It is quite remarkable. And so, so they've done, their season is over, and it was a fabulous, and one thing I will say, so here is Bella at the top of her, she's excelling. And every time when you see an interview with her, it was about having fun with her team and just being a part of something bigger than herself. And so if you read any of her interviews, I think you will be very impressed with what she has to say about being a part of a team. So I don't know. Congratulations to the gymnastics team and to Bella. Also, our wrestling is we have a number of wrestlers. I think we had 5 wrestlers, and they start tomorrow at the state tournament. Our girls' basketball is doing well. They have a game on Saturday night it's in section semifinals, I think. I don't know if it's semifinals, but it's section tournament. They won their first game. We have boys hockey on Friday night, also on the road to state. And then who knows what our boys' basketball's, we're wait and see on that as well. And of course, we talked about the Nordic ski team as well. So it's been a really busy fall. So I will highlight, did you have something?
I just want to add, in the high school e-news, I was really impressed that Kathy Nickleby included in there the new regulations on bags that can go into the tournament. So if you're planning to go see any of our students compete at state level competition, they have new regulations on bags. You cannot take a purse. Everything has to be this new clear plastic. But if you go on Amazon, I went and bought some. It's inexpensive and very easy to get. It's being delivered tomorrow. So I can go to these state events because you can't take anything in with you that's not a clear bag. And so if any of you are planning to attend and see our students perform at these events, please know that before you walk in, because it'll save you a hassle going back to your car.
It's like going to a stadium event.
Right.
It's the exact same.
It's the exact same thing.
Professional
So,
sports.
Yep,
College
Okay.
sports.
yep, just so everyone's
tip.
aware.
Good
Yes.
tip. Okay. Also, at the high school, we had a number of students qualify for All-State Honor Choir. And then 9th and 10th grade, State Honor Band. So we just had, and I think all of those on the high school website as well. So we've just had a very busy time right now at the high school. Coming up next week, we do have, we have our middle school Junie B. Jones play is coming up, right? And then OH also has a play, The Grunch, coming up next weekend next weekend as well. So those are both on the on the school's websites as well.
There's a drama club at OH Anderson, or is it like a 3rd or a 4th grade?
This is another Kathy Weiland piece. This is through Community Ed.
Wow,
So Kathy partnered with Ashland Productions, and so Ashland Productions has been coming into OH Anderson before school, working with a group of kids, and now they will get to go down to Ashland and put the show on Ashland stage and do a full production, costume, the whole works, and it's thanks to Kathy's partnership with them that our kids have this opportunity.
So it's Jamie's partnership, Jamie. Yes. But, yes. If you haven't heard, our high school Real World Design Challenge won for the 4th straight year, going to nationals. And the second team, we had another team come in second place. And so they are able to, because it was one of the top in the nation, they've also been invited to come and compete. So, yeah, so we have both of those teams going to nationals. Next week, one more thing about this week, it was Bus Driver Appreciation Day, so if you didn't get a chance to thank your bus driver, please do that. We are very thankful for all they do, because it is hard to both pay attention to behind you and in front of you when you're driving a bus, and so it's a tough job, so we're very thankful for the work they do. Finally, a couple things coming up. We have Read Across America Week next week, and at Wildwood, we have Don Quigley, the author Don Quigley, coming to read and talk with our students, and we also have Commissioner Ricker, the Commissioner of Education, coming to visit Wildwood and to read to students as well. So that's happening on Monday. And finally, I'm just going to tell you, we're excited for our next board meeting when we have our Zephyr Learning Showcase. Right before the meeting, starting at 6:30, we're going to have students from the high school and from Wildwood coming and doing a big showcase. There are going to be kids everywhere sharing with you their learning. And so the purpose of these learning showcases is to be able to recognize students who are really going after something in their learning that may or may not. It's to showcase that we have students going after lots of different areas, going deep in lots of different areas. And so I think you'll see that when you come to the showcase at 6:30 next at our regular board meeting, so the March 26th. But we also have them on April 23rd and May 26th. So for those who can't make it, on March 26th, we will have more. So, and with that, I think I'll end my update. Thank you. You know what? I was not going to talk about that. That was just for you. So but I will. So each of our buildings has completed their building level plan. And so these were just copies for each of you as board members, because we thought you would like to have a copy for yourself. So.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
That ends our agenda items for tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Stacy.
Second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.